My niece publicly humiliated my autistic son at her ballet rehearsal, so we left. Then she called child services and tried to have him taken from me, not realizing just how fast the tables can turn. My name is Alan. I'm 39 years old, and I live in St. Louis with my son, Jonah. When I opened the invitation to Clara's ballet showcase, I smiled before I even finished reading. My sister Lydia had written it herself in this fancy cursive font, all white cardstock and gold trim like it came straight from a wedding. You were cordially invited, it said, followed by the date and venue, the St. Louis Civic Arts Theater. It was Clara's first time performing a featured solo in her Academy's year-end showcase. Big deal. Expensive tickets, the whole thing. Jonah was in the next room humming to himself, lining up his dinosaur figurines. I walked in holding the invite like it was made of glass. Hey buddy, I said gently. Guess what? We got invited to Clara's ballet show. He froze, head tilted like he didn't understand. She wants us to come watch her dance, I said, crouching to his level. Me too, he whispered. I can come too? You and me together, I said, like a special treat. And just like that, he squealed. He flapped his hands and twirled in a circle and jumped up and down until he accidentally knocked over a chair. Didn't matter. He was glowing. I hadn't seen him that happy in a long time. Jonah has autism, semi-low functioning if you want the clinical term. He's 8, loves animal documentaries, peanut butter crackers, and routines. He doesn't like unexpected loud noises or people touching his stuff, but he tries. Every day he tries. Do I clap for Clara? He asked as we got ready for bed that night. You can clap after the dances, not during. Remember? He nodded. We went over the rules all week. No talking during the performance. We wait for the lights to come back on before standing. If he needed his headphones, we'd bring them. I even bought him a soft collared shirt, not because anyone told me to, but because I wanted him to feel included, not just tolerated. Included. When the day came, Jonah lined up his shoes by the door an hour early. I packed fidget toys, noise-canceling headphones, a weighted lap pad, all the things that help him stay calm in public. I was nervous, but also hopeful. My sister's family knew Jonah. They knew his heart. They'd never treated him the way strangers sometimes did. The whispers in grocery stores, the looks at restaurants. I told myself family would be different. We pulled into the Civic Arts parking lot, and Jonah craned his neck to see the building. Is Clara in there? He asked. She sure is. He clutched my hand all the way inside. There were rows of parents in black dresses and jackets, kids in tiny tutus running through the lobby. I caught a glimpse of Lydia by the entrance to the rehearsal hall, talking to a woman with a clipboard. I waved. She looked up, paused, then waved back a little too fast, a little too forced. I should have known something was off, but I didn't. Not yet. Jonah tugged my sleeve. I want to see Clara dance. And in that moment, I smiled. I really believed this would be good. A family event. A chance to show the world how amazing my son is. I didn't know we were walking straight into a storm. The rehearsal was already underway when we slipped into the back row of the small auditorium. It wasn't packed yet, just a few parents, teachers, and what looked like some donors or board members judging by the suits. Lydia gave us a nod as we came in but didn't wave again. She turned back toward the stage like we weren't even there. Jonah sat next to me, cross-legged in his chair, headphones on but not playing anything yet. His eyes were wide, his hands gripping the edges of his seat. Clara was already on stage, dancing with a few other girls in pale blue leotards, her arms floating like she was made of air. Jonah beamed. That's her, he whispered. Clara. I nodded. She's doing great. Huh? He nodded, transfixed. The music flowed, soft and classical, and Jonah stayed perfectly still. Occasionally, he rocked just slightly, his way of processing excitement, but he kept quiet. No disruptions. He was doing everything right. Clara finished her section, then the group scattered off stage. She lingered a moment longer, glancing at someone in the wings, then finally followed the others. Jonah clapped quietly, more to himself than anyone else. He didn't even make a sound. Then the next piece started, a solo. Clara again. Spotlight on her. The soft click of point shoes against wood. I could feel Jonah vibrating with pride beside me. But halfway through the dance, Clara's movements faltered. She slowed, turned, and squinted into the crowd like she was looking for someone. And then, mid-spin, she stopped altogether. I didn't know Jonah was coming, she said, out loud, loud enough to echo off the stage. Her voice was pinched, annoyed, not theatrical, real. Everything went still. Heads turned. I could feel eyes on us, heavy, silent, waiting for a response. Lydia stood up slowly, but didn't say a word. Jonah looked at me, blinking. His hands were frozen mid-stem. He didn't understand. Why is she mad? He asked. I shook my head. She's just surprised. Clara crossed her arms on stage. We're supposed to keep distractions out of the rehearsal. This is a closed session. The woman with the clipboard stepped toward the edge of the stage. Maybe we can take a quick 5. Jonah's lip trembled. His voice cracked. I'm not a distraction. I know, I said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. But he was already curling into himself, fingers digging into his lap pad, eyes wide with confusion. A few parents near the front turned around to look at us. One whispered something into her husband's ear. He shook his head. I stood. Come on, buddy. Let's go. No, Jonah whimpered. I want to see the dance. We'll watch a different one, okay? Just not here. His legs didn't move. He was frozen. So I picked him up, not fast, not angry, and carried him out of the auditorium as gently as I could. He clung to me, whimpering. The second the door closed behind us, he let out a sob. We sat in the car for 30 minutes while he cried and yelled and tried to regulate. I held him, let him feel what he needed to feel. He wasn't the problem, but someone had made him feel like he was. And I couldn't forget that. Not now. Not ever. A week later was the actual showcase, the full event with flowers, programs, speeches. But we weren't going. I told Lydia we had other plans. She didn't respond. Jonah never brought it up again after the car ride. He just quietly moved his ballerina figurine off his shelf and placed it in a storage bin under his bed. I didn't ask why. I just watched, and it broke something in me I didn't even know was still intact. But 2 months later, Clara got married. Fancy garden wedding, white tents, catered everything. Lydia sent an invitation, addressed just to me. Jonah's name wasn't mentioned, not even a +1. I RSVP'd yes. I showed up wearing my nicest jacket, and when it came time for the reception toasts, I asked for the mic. Everyone had been drinking champagne and cooing over centerpieces shaped like swans. Clara looked radiant, smiling with her new husband, her makeup flawless, her hair done up like a princess. She saw me stand and gave a small, grateful smile, like I'd come to play nice. She had no idea. Hi everyone, I said, lifting my glass. I'm Alan. I'm the bride's uncle, Lydia's older brother. Some polite claps, a few raised brows. I couldn't bring my son Jonah today. Some of you may know him. Some of you may not, but Clara does. Clara blinked. Her smile stayed fixed, but her jaw tightened. I just wanted to share something, I continued, sliding my hand into my pocket. Before I came here today, Jonah asked if he could say something to Clara. I told him he couldn't be here, but I promised I'd pass along the message. I pulled out my phone and tapped the recording. Jonah's voice came through the speakers, soft and shaky. Hi Clara, I like your dancing. I hope your wedding is nice. I hope you're happy. I love you because you're family. Then silence. A beat passed. Someone sniffled. An aunt dabbed her eyes. A few guests murmured, that was so sweet. I looked back at Clara. She mouthed something. Thank you. But I saw it. The flash behind her eyes. The panic. The clenching jaw. She wasn't grateful. She was furious. I didn't say anything else. I just smiled and sat down. She couldn't lash out here, not without showing her true face. So she smiled back. The fakest smile I'd ever seen. That night, back home, I tucked Jonah in. He asked if Clara liked the message. She did, I said. And maybe that was a lie, but it was a kind one. I lay awake after he fell asleep, thinking about everything. I hadn't thrown a tantrum. I hadn't made a scene. But I'd told the truth, with a recording that came from the purest place on earth, a little boy who still loved people who didn't know how to love him back. And that, I thought, was enough. For now. 3 days after the wedding, I was in the kitchen making Jonah's favorite, scrambled eggs with ketchup, when the knock came. 2 people, both in business casual clothes with laminated badges. The woman introduced herself first. Hi, Mr. Harper. I'm Monica Sanders. This is my colleague Tim. We're from Child Protective Services. My heart didn't just drop, it collapsed. Can we come in for a few minutes? She asked, like this was just a neighborly visit. Jonah was still in his pajamas, humming in the living room, building a blanket fort. I opened the door wider, stunned. Sure. What's this about? We received an anonymous report about potential neglect in the home, Tim said, pulling out a notepad. I almost laughed. Neglect? Yes, Monica said calmly. We just need to look around, ask a few questions, verify Jonah's living conditions. The next 20 minutes felt like being dissected under a microscope. They walked through the house, took pictures of Jonah's room, opened cabinets. Monica raised an eyebrow when she saw the sensory swing in the corner of the living room. And what's this for? She asked. It helps Jonah regulate when he's overstimulated, I said. His therapist recommended it. Tim scribbled in his notepad. They looked at the padded foam tiles on the bedroom floor like they were biohazards. Monica paused at the fridge, noting the color-coded visual meal planner I'd made for Jonah. Is he verbal? She asked. He is, I said, but it depends on how he's feeling. Then she turned to Jonah, who peeked out from under his blanket fort. Hi, Jonah, she said gently. I like your blanket house. He didn't respond. Can I come in? Jonah shrunk back, eyes wide. He doesn't do well with strangers, I said quickly, especially unannounced visits. Monica turned back to me. Mr. Harper, I understand this is sudden, but based on our findings and the nature of the report, we're going to place Jonah in temporary emergency care. I thought I'd misheard. What? I stepped back. No, wait. What are you talking about? What findings? The sensory items, the room modifications, the behavioral structure without a secondary caregiver. They were flagged as concerning given the report's description, Tim added. I felt the blood leave my face. He's autistic. Everything here is for his care, his comfort. That's not neglect. I understand your concern, Monica said, her voice professional but cold. You'll have an opportunity to explain everything, of course. But for now, we have to follow protocol. Jonah began to cry. I don't want to go. You're not going anywhere, I said, turning to him. Just give me a second, okay? I pulled Monica aside. Look, if he absolutely has to go somewhere, let him stay with my mother. She knows his needs. She's nearby. She shook her head. Unfortunately, based on the urgency of the report and lack of pre-approval, that's not an option at this time. My voice cracked. He's just a kid. He needs me. He won't understand. I'm sorry. They took him anyway. He screamed, fought, begged. I tried to stay calm for him, told him it was just for a short while, that I'd fix it. But when the car pulled away with Jonah in the back seat, face pressed to the window, mouthing, "Daddy, please," I broke. I stood there on the porch of our quiet house, now too silent, too clean, holding a report I hadn't even seen, trying to make sense of a nightmare I didn't see coming. Someone had done this, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who. But they had messed with the wrong parent, because I was going to burn the world down before I let them keep my son. The next morning, I didn't even finish my coffee before making the first call. "Rita Kessler?" I said when she picked up. "It's Alan Harper. I need your help." Rita was a disability rights attorney I'd met at a local seminar 2 years ago. We hadn't spoken since, but I remembered how sharp she was. She didn't ask for details, just told me to come in that afternoon and bring everything I had. In the hours before the meeting, I pulled together every document I could find. Jonah's therapy reports, progress notes from his occupational specialist, school evaluations, even a letter from his pediatrician stating his environment was one of the most consistent and developmentally supportive she'd seen. I scanned and printed everything, organizing it in folders until my living room looked like a war room. When I met Rita, I laid it all out. She skimmed the summary of the CPS report, her eyebrows raised. "This is a joke," she said. "They flagged the sensory tools, the color-coded visuals. That's standard best practice." I nodded. The social worker was young, didn't know much about autism, honestly. Rita sighed. "You'd be surprised how often that happens." "Okay, we'll file for an emergency hearing, and we'll hit this hard. Meanwhile, I want letters from Jonah's teachers, therapists, anyone who knows your parenting." By that night, I had 6 signed statements in my inbox. Jonah's special ed teacher, Ms. Green, wrote a full-page testimony about his growth over the past year and how involved I'd been. His speech therapist even recorded a video, holding back tears as she said, "Jonah is the safest and happiest when he's with his dad." But that wasn't the part that made me feel like I was losing my mind. That came when my cousin Drew, a social worker himself, called me in a whisper. "Hey, Alan," he said, "I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but I thought you should know something." "What?" "Clara's been talking. At the wedding, after you left, she was bragging to someone about how you embarrassed her. Said she could make life hard if you kept pushing." My stomach turned. Did she say she called CPS? No, not directly. But she made a comment like, "He's not as perfect as he pretends to be." I just didn't think much of it at the time. I thanked him, hung up, and sat there shaking. I wanted to believe it wasn't Clara, that maybe some neighbor had misunderstood something. But it added up too well. The timing, the wording of the report, the way it emphasized behavioral oddities and home setup instead of actual safety. And I knew how this would look to strangers. A single dad with a quiet son, non-traditional setup, no partner at home. It didn't take much to light that match. 3 days later, I finally got to see Jonah. They let us meet in a sterile room with a bolted-down table and plastic chairs. He looked different, smaller, like all the joy had been sucked out of him. His eyes lit up when he saw me, but the second he reached for a hug, a worker stepped in. "We don't allow physical contact until the case is reviewed," she said flatly. So Jonah just stood there, arms twitching at his sides. "Hey, buddy," I said. "You okay?" He didn't speak, just nodded. But 10 minutes in, he started to unravel. His body jerked, his voice trembled. "I want to go home," he whimpered. "Why did you leave me?" I swallowed the guilt, the fury, the heartbreak. "I didn't want to, Jonah. I promise I'm fixing it. You're coming home soon, okay?" He buried his face in the table and sobbed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen counter staring at the empty cereal bowls we hadn't gotten to wash before CPS showed up. I printed every photo of his room, labeled every document, copied every email. And then I opened a blank notebook and wrote at the top in big letters, "Bring Jonah home." Underneath, I wrote one name, Clara, and I drew a line straight through it. The courthouse smelled like old paper and cheap sanitizer. Rita met me outside the hearing room. She had a thick binder under one arm, her phone in the other, and a look in her eyes that said she was more than ready to go to war. "You good?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm here." Inside, the courtroom was small, not the kind you see on TV. No gallery, just chairs along the back wall. The CPS rep sat on one side, across from me and Rita. Behind us sat a guardian ad litem, the court-appointed advocate for Jonah. And behind her, Lydia and Clara. Clara wore a soft blue dress, her hair pulled back in a braid. She looked calm, poised, like she was here for a parent-teacher meeting, not a custody hearing she caused. When the judge came in, we all stood. Rita started with our side. She presented Jonah's therapy letters, school progress reports, doctor statements. She pulled up printed photos of his room, labeled bins, soft lighting, sensory tools. She described everything in that binder like it was gospel. Then she brought up Ms. Green, Jonah's teacher, to testify. "Has Mr. Harper ever exhibited signs of neglect or inappropriate parenting?" "Never," Ms. Green said, voice steady. "He's one of the most involved parents I've ever worked with." "And Jonah's progress?" "Substantial. His speech, his social engagement, even his self-regulation have all improved significantly under Mr. Harper's care." Next came Dr. Patel, Jonah's pediatrician. "The items CPS flagged as suspicious," Rita asked her. "How would you classify them?" Essential accommodations, she said. These are evidence-based tools used for children with autism. Then it was CPS's turn. Their rep tried to justify the removal by citing the initial complaint: lack of social integration, home environment overly controlled, no maternal presence. It was clear the report leaned hard on the idea that a single father couldn't possibly handle this alone. And then came Clara. She took the stand like she belonged there, smiled softly at the judge, and said, "I just wanted to raise concerns. I was afraid for Jonah's well-being." Rita stood slowly. "Ms. Summers, can you clarify how you're involved in Jonah's life?" "I'm his cousin," Clara said. "And how often do you see him?" "Maybe once a month, sometimes less." "And have you ever witnessed Mr. Harper abusing or neglecting his son?" "No," Clara said carefully. "But I've seen Jonah." Confused. "He doesn't act normal. I thought something might be wrong at home." Rita nodded slowly. "Did you attend the ballet rehearsal?" "Yes." "Do you recall publicly singling out Jonah in front of the rehearsal audience?" Clara froze. I was surprised to see him." "So you stopped your performance, pointed at him, and called him a distraction?" "I didn't say that exactly, but you did imply he shouldn't have been there." Clara's face flushed. "It wasn't like that." No further questions. By the time Clara stepped down, even the CPS rep looked uncomfortable. After closing statements, the judge sat silently, flipping through papers. Then she spoke. "Mr. Harper," she said, "the evidence overwhelmingly supports your capability and devotion as a parent. That said, based on standard CPS protocol, Jonah will remain in temporary care, but with your mother, effective immediately." I nodded. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was something. The hearing ended. I stepped into the hallway, running on fumes. Rita was already planning our next steps when I saw Clara lean in close. "You think this is over?" she whispered. "It's not." I looked her in the eyes, dead calm. "You're not hurting him again." She gave a thin, humorless smile. "You can't stop me." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because when I got to my mom's house and Jonah ran into my arms, crying and laughing at the same time, I knew one thing for sure. I would never, ever stop fighting for him. Not even if it meant going through hell again. For about a week, things felt calmer. Jonah was safe at my mom's, and I visited every evening after work. We'd sit on the floor with his flashcards or rewatch his favorite nature series. And for a few hours, it almost felt normal again. He laughed more, ate better, started sleeping through the night again. Rita kept pushing the case forward, building for full reunification. She said the judge's tone had been in our favor. All we needed was time and a clean follow-up check. Then came the next hit. Rita called me one morning with that clipped voice she used when something was wrong. "Alan, CPS got a second report." I blinked. "Another one? Filed under your father's name." I sat back in my chair. "My dad died 5 years ago." "I know." They listed a full name and address from old records, but it was submitted through the anonymous portal. My stomach dropped. It was Clara again. I knew it. I didn't even need proof. "She's doubling down," I muttered. This time, the report mentions emotional outbursts, claims of aggression, and, this is the most ridiculous part, a dangerous fixation on the child's routine that impairs natural development. I actually laughed, bitterly. "You mean the same routines his therapist gave us?" "She's trying to make your parenting look obsessive." That night, I got a message from an unknown number. No text, just a video file. I waited for it to load, already on edge. Then I hit play. It was a hidden camera recording, grainy, taken from a parked car. Clara, standing in someone's driveway, arms crossed, ranting to a man I didn't recognize. Her voice was raised, agitated. "I don't care what it takes. He made me look like a monster. If CPS sees even one red flag, they'll keep Jonah away from him." The man said something I couldn't hear. Clara snapped back, then used my dad's name. "He's dead. It's not illegal." My hands shook as I watched. Then the man, who I now realized was her ex-husband, Craig, stepped into frame. "I'm recording this," he said flatly. "You wouldn't dare. Watch me." The video ended. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. An hour later, Craig called. "I had enough," he said. "She's been playing games with people's lives for years. I should have done this sooner." The next morning, Rita brought the video to the CPS investigator assigned to our case. They didn't say much officially, but off the record, the lead investigator gave us a nod. "We're starting to see a pattern," she said. "And it's not with you, Mr. Harper." That afternoon, Rita filed a cease and desist against Clara, Lydia, and any member of their household. It included a warning about legal consequences for further false reports. I expected Clara to back off, but deep down I knew better. People like her don't stop because they see reason. They stop when there's nowhere left to hide. It was my mother who organized the meeting. She called me on a Thursday morning, voice tight but resolute. "I've invited everyone over this weekend," she said. "It's time we stop pretending this isn't happening." "You mean Clara?" I asked. "I mean everything. You, her, Lydia, this nightmare. We need to clear the air." I didn't know what to expect walking into her living room that Saturday afternoon. But by the time I got there, nearly every family member was already present. Lydia, a few cousins, Aunt Marlene, even Clara's ex-husband Craig, which was the biggest surprise. Clara stood near the fireplace with her arms crossed, and that same bored expression she always wore when she felt cornered but wanted to seem above it. My mom didn't waste time. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "This isn't about sides. It's about Jonah, about Alan, about truth." Clara scoffed quietly. "This again. Quiet." My mom snapped, sharper than I'd heard in years. Everyone blinked. She turned to me. "Alan, go ahead." So I did. I brought the documents, the letters from Jonah's specialist, a printed transcript of the CPS reports, and when they were filed. And finally, the video Craig had sent, queued up on a tablet for all to hear. When her voice rang out, "If CPS sees even one red flag, they'll keep Jonah away from him." You could hear the oxygen leave the room. Lydia muttered, "Oh my God." Clara's face didn't change, but her silence was loud. My cousin Beth stood up. "You lied to all of us. You used a dead man's name," someone else said. "She could have lost custody." Aunt Marlene barked. Craig spoke next. Calm, measured. "Clara's been like this for years. Controlling, manipulative. I stayed quiet for too long." "You're just bitter because I left you," Clara shot back. "No," he said. "I'm bitter because you destroy everything good that doesn't center you." The room fell quiet again. Then my mom said something I didn't expect. "I knew something wasn't right at the ballet rehearsal," she said, "but I didn't want to see it. I let myself believe family couldn't do something this cruel." Clara rolled her eyes. "You're all so dramatic." "No," Lydia said suddenly. "You are. You always have been. We've all just been too scared or too polite to say it." "You think you're better than me?" Clara snapped. "No," Lydia said. "I think Alan is. He's been raising a beautiful, kind, gentle boy on his own, while you've spent the past year trying to ruin him because your feelings got hurt at a wedding." "I was humiliated," Clara shouted. "No," I said quietly. "You were exposed. That was it. The last threat." Clara stormed out, slammed the door so hard the clock on the wall fell sideways. No one followed her. For the first time in years, the people who had always tiptoed around her finally stood up. My mom looked at me, eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry I didn't act sooner." I just nodded. "You're acting now." One by one, family members came up and hugged me, apologized, asked what they could do. Lydia asked if she could visit Jonah next week and bring one of his favorite books. I said yes. Craig stayed after everyone left. "If you ever need someone to testify against her," he said, "I'm in." As the sun set, my mom made tea for the two of us and we sat in silence. No more hiding, no more secrets. Clara's hold was broken, and for the first time in months, I believed we were finally getting our family back. A month later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. "Mr. Harper," the CPS investigator said, "we've concluded the case. All reports have been reviewed and dismissed. There will be no further action. Jonah can return home." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared out the window, watching the leaves shift in the wind like the world had finally exhaled. "Thank you," I managed to say. That night, Jonah came back home. He ran through the door like he never left, tossing his backpack in its usual spot and racing to his room to make sure his stuffed animals were still arranged just the way he liked them. They were. I'd kept it exactly the same. When I tucked him into bed, he looked at me and whispered, "I knew you'd come." I never stopped, I told him. Not for a second. From that point on, everything started to feel different, not just at home, but with the whole family. Slowly, people showed up. For Jonah. For me. My cousin Beth brought over a set of chewable pencil grips she'd found online. My aunt baked gluten-free cookies after reading about dietary sensitivity in kids with autism. Even Lydia started asking real questions. "What does he need when he gets overwhelmed?" she asked over coffee one morning. "Time, space, and quiet," I said. "Mostly just people who don't judge him for being different." "I can do that," she said. And I believed her. There were no more invitations where Jonah's name was missing. No more side eyes or sighs when he flapped his hands in excitement. They learned. They tried. Some clumsily, sure. Like when my cousin accidentally handed him a balloon at a birthday party. But they asked questions after. They wanted to understand. And that meant everything. One day I got an email. No sender name. Just the subject. "You think you've won?" I didn't even open it. I blocked the address and deleted it without another thought. Clara's last attempt to rattle the cage. But it didn't work. Because we weren't in that cage anymore. Jonah was thriving. Back in school, back in therapy, laughing again, sleeping through the night. He even made a friend in his class, a quiet kid named Theo who loved trains and facts about sea turtles. The last page of the CPS file sat in my desk drawer, signed and stamped, "Case closed. No concerns found." I kept it not as a warning, but as a reminder that we'd made it, that even in the face of betrayal and cruelty, we didn't break. We bent, we hurt, we fought, but we came back, together. It was a Sunday in mid-June when my mom hosted a big family barbecue in her backyard. The first real gathering since the storm passed. She sent out the invite like it was nothing special, just a come eat burgers and catch up kind of thing. But I knew what it really was. It was a quiet celebration, not of birthdays or holidays, but of peace. Jonah and I arrived early. He was wearing his favorite blue shirt with a picture of a bear on it, the one he always said made him feel brave. He clung to my hand as we stepped through the gate and into a yard full of voices and folding chairs and bright plastic cups. He froze. "Too loud?" I asked. He shook his head but didn't move. Then Lydia spotted us from across the yard. She waved, came over slowly, and knelt down to his level. "Hey Jonah," she said softly. "We saved you a quiet chair by the big tree. It's in the shade and it's got your favorite crackers on the plate. No cheese." I remembered. He blinked, then whispered, okay. That's all it took. He let go of my hand and followed her. I watched him walk across the yard, slow, cautious, but not afraid. Not anymore. Later, while I was flipping burgers at the grill, one of Clara's old bridesmaids, a woman named Mallory, came up to me with a drink in her hand. She looked nervous. Alan, she said. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about everything. I was at the wedding. I should have said something then. What Clara did. It wasn't okay. I nodded. Thanks. I didn't get it before, but I do now. Jonah's amazing. I looked over and saw him laughing under the tree, swinging gently in a hammock someone had set up. He was surrounded by a few cousins, one of whom, to my shock, had let him teach her how to use his noise-canceling headphones. It was like he had his own little audience. Then something unexpected happened. One of the younger kids, maybe 10, made a loud joke, something about Jonah's flapping hands. A small ripple of laughter followed. Jonah stood up, walked over. Please don't say that, he said clearly. My hands flap because I'm excited. That's how my body talks. The other kid blinked. Oh, okay. And that was it. No fight, no tears. Just a boy who knew how to speak for himself. I had to turn away and pretend I was checking the grill so no one saw my eyes. That night, when the yard was quiet and the sun was low, Jonah came over and leaned into me. I like today, he said. It was a happy. It really was, buddy, I whispered. You made it happy. Because he did. This time, the family didn't just include him. They saw him. They heard him. And for the first time, they listened.